Neal Rantoul is best known for his luminous landscapes and architectural studies. Images defined by precision, clarity, and elegance. He's also explored other territories in projects like Monsters and Cabela's. He's had a career spanning over 5 decades. He led the photography program at Northeastern University for 30 years and taught at Harvard for more than a decade. Since retiring, he's continued producing new work and sharing his vast archive. In his lifetime, he has had over 60 solo exhibitions and produced more than a dozen books. In this book edition of The Crit House, Neal Rantoul discusses his newest publication featuring photographs made with his 8x10 camera. Why did you choose this subject for a book at this point in your life?
So I have a clear rationale, and based upon a need. So in a long career of making pictures, of which many of those years, as we know, were in 8x10, that if I don't make those negatives into scans, and if I don't then take those scans and make them into something presentable, primarily a book, for all intents and purposes, they don't exist. So here's this period of my career, mid-career, where I'm cranking. I'm turning out a lot of pictures. I'm in Europe a lot. I'm traveling a lot with that camera. There was a real gap in my legacy, or my period that I worked, that had no real coverage. Most people didn't know of it. I didn't have those things up on my website. I had some exhibitions, but very small ones in the 80s and 90s of that work. I didn't print everything. So the job was to get them scanned, right? Which is very arduous, painful, right?
Yeah, it's not. So just, I mean, you're scanning 8x10s. That's not like taking a 35 millimeter scan. It's a different animal, right?
No, that's right. And it's a perfect surface for dust and scratches. So then those have to be, Photoshop cloned to be clean. So to get them ready for the book or to get them ready to print is arduous. And I hired an assistant to do just that. She's been working for a couple of years at that. So it's a slow process. So in terms of my career, if I was going to try to leave something behind or try to have something cohesive that kind of looked at my career, there was this 21-year gap.
Yeah.
And so makes sense to turn that into a book, I think. And so if I'm trying to leave something behind, that becomes part of what I leave behind. And now it has representation. Before it didn't.
It is interesting to sort of talk about, so because you've been in the photographic world for your entire career. You're a photographer, you were an instructor, you were a teacher, and now you're still working in this photographic world. You've done a lot of books.
I have.
I mean, that's and what, it's dozens, right?
Yeah. And virtually all of them are in some form on demand. I've been the primary editor, the primary publisher of the work of various different books. And so I feel like I can speak to people that are in that same kind of camp. Those people that are trying to figure out what to do with their work. My whole career has been print-based, as you know.
Yeah.
Photography is not a print-based medium anymore. It might need to be printed to get up on the wall in a gallery or sold as a part of a collection, but it's primarily not a print-based medium. So
meaning people are seeing it on Instagram and they're seeing it online. That's right. Yeah.
Right. So the 8x10 work needs to have that same possibility as a vehicle to get the work out as any other format does now. And I don't disparage. I'm not feeling I made a big mistake by making prints all over those years, but the medium has moved on, and it's moved on into online-based imagery. So what are you going to do? How are you going to represent your work? How are you going to grapple with something that you feel is good that you want to finalize and complete, and maybe have a book that goes up on a shelf or sits on a coffee table or goes to a colleague or a friend or a collector? you send a book.
Yeah.
It's perfect,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And the process by which we make books now has truly changed. In the early days, I remember I looked at some books I made in the early 2000s that were early Apple books. iPhoto had a vehicle for making
Right.
books.
Right. I
They
remember that.
weren't very good. They
Yeah.
were very simple and weren't very good. That now the technology of those printers and the software and the way that you make a PDF is pretty good. And so why wouldn't you, for $35 or $50, make a book, right? And you might make the first one like I did that wasn't perfect, and then revise it and make another one. And so I've used that process of being able to have iterations of the book. The American Series book, the bigger book, was photo offset printed in China. It was a legitimate regular book. So that's a little different. But I can't see any reason why somebody wouldn't turn that page and find themselves making a book.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's so many different ways of doing it now. Let me ask you something. So, Sam Abel was on here before you, and he launched this book series, this book edition series. He said something that I've been sort of figuring out in terms of like my photography. He says that one of the things he says is when he talks to photographers and they're trying to figure out their own photography, he talks about looking for themselves in their work. And I mean, you're not a beginner photographer. You've been doing this for decades now. What do you see of yourself in your work, or is that relevant to you?
It is relevant to me, and I see my core values, particularly in a book like the new book, the 8x10 book. I'm not making pictures for any intention except to try to make art. I'm not trying to make pictures for some deadline or some exhibition or something. I'm just out with a camera looking to make my pictures. So in some ways, that becomes the core. That does become it. And if you can't figure out what Neal Rantoul's way of seeing is from that, maybe I have a failure in communication. But I think that basically is the statement.
When you put together this book, you have to think about who's the audience. And you talked about it a little bit before, but like who was the audience you were thinking about when you were looking at this book? Are you thinking it's for the gallerists who you want to get the show for, using it for that, or is it like when you were putting together, who was that person?
I guess I would answer that by trying to step back rather than think so intentionally about this gallery or a museum or specifically for a show proposal, and
Yeah.
it becomes a vehicle by which I present my work. It becomes a portfolio, right? And so no longer do we show a box of prints anymore. We tend to show a book, and a book is an easy enough vehicle to get our work out.
Well, so let's talk a little bit about the nuts and bolts about how you actually went about the process of putting this book together after you've got the concept.
Yeah, I had the idea, and so I knew I was driving towards a book because I'd hired and trained an assistant. So Allie was making scans, and so we were a little bit in production, and so we were looking at those, and we probably scanned 150 or 200 negatives, and we got ourselves down to about 75 in the book. One of my ideas was that I was going to work with a designer. I'm a photographer, I'm not a designer. So for me to design it felt a little sketchy. Where I am in my career, I wanted to present something that was elegant and simple and clean. And I felt as though I probably wouldn't be that great at that. So keep myself to my photography, hire a designer. As you know, I hired Meg Birnbaum, which is a local Boston area designer and truly excellent. And she and I we didn't know each other that well, so we needed to kind of develop our relationship a little bit, our working relationship. And she would we'd had a mock-up where she went to Staples and pulled prints of the pages and presented those to me. We did that several times. And so we're cutting out images. We're now putting other images in, replacing images. We're beginning to play with sequencing. She suggested this publisher. Can I say the name of the publisher?
Sure, go ahead. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Mixam.
Yep.
Mixam, and I thought they were really good. And one of the reasons that we liked working with them was that they were responsive. You could talk to them with blurb that's kind of not so easy. So there are some that are better at this than other, but Mixam was very responsive to what we were saying and trying to do.
Yeah, and they're in Illinois, right? Is that?
Yes,
they're in the States.
With Meg's help, we started to make a mock-up of a book. She pulled that together into an initial PDF, and off it went. And it came back, and I think you saw one of those versions where it was a little rough. I'd written a couple essays. Those needed to be reworked a little bit. And so the book evolved in a 3-week or 4-week turnaround. You could have a book in hand. I ordered 2 at a time, and I did that a few times. And so if I wasn't pressed with a deadline to get the book out by a certain date, and I wasn't, we could refine the book. Some images came out, some images went back in, they were resized or repositioned on the page. You try to establish a kind of a rhythm with the pages. But there are tremendous advantages to what a book is. You're specifying the way the reader sees it, page to page. How do you do that work on a gallery wall or in a portfolio? You don't. It's locked in. So the book presents you, your pictures, in the way that you want to see them presented. That's huge.
I want to sing Meg's praises a little bit because I know her as well, and she helped me with my book when it came out. But so she's amazing. But can you talk a little bit more about, like, did she have say when you brought her in? Did you allow her to pull images and throw them out and say this doesn't work? Is that the level of involvement she had?
I would say more characterized of basically how she suggested sequences and suggested a rhythm or a pattern, and with some modification by me, but not a huge amount. I thought as I got to know her intuition was so good, and her skill set was so good that you could sort of trust her and say, throw too many images at her and see which one she chose. And sometimes I feel a little sad that this or that wasn't included. Then something else was, She found some magic in something that I hadn't really known. So as we continued to work together, she kept coming out to the studio. We would sit down with Allie, my assistant, and go through it page by page. And each time she made her presentation, or Staples copies, it was sort of magic and delightful.
Talk to me about the size of the book as well. This is not a massive coffee table book, which is, they're hard to look at. This is a good size. But I mean, the other piece about this is what that's interesting. The print that is on the page is smaller than the original negative was.
That's right.
So that had to be a decision you had to make, right? Just the size of the book.
8x10 books are big, ambitious projects. And this was a project funded by Neal Rantoul, right? Without granting and without publishing, backing. So I was trying to make a very high quality, affordable book. And the way to do that is to keep it small. And I also wanted something that would be easy to move around, to mail out, to share with people, and for it not to be overwhelming. And then the last part is for it to be not too expensive.
And that's the hard part.
That is, exactly.
Yeah.
Pages, it gets more expensive.
Well, so the other thing I'm really interested in at this point is, I mean, you have been in this business for a long period of time. You chose to self-fund this, and you chose not to go on to one of the online fundraising tools that's available, and you chose not to go to a publisher. And I'm sure that there would have been publishers that would have been interested in doing this.
Yeah, at a cost.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're at a cost. You're exactly right. So, but you chose not to receive the benefits that would come with that cost.
I wanted the autonomy. I wanted the ability to call all the shots myself. I'm too senior in this field to be manipulated and changed around by somebody who's trying to do something else with my work.
Right.
I've had that experience. In the 80s, I had a publisher after me to publish work, and they altered everything that I wanted to do with the book, and it was becoming something else. And this colleague and I pulled out of the project because of that. So I didn't want anybody exerting their own control.
Yeah. When you look back at all of the things that you did, is there a book that you are just especially proud of?
Yes, the American Series book,
Okay.
the larger book, published in 2005, and as I said, printed in China. It's a labor of love, that project. It basically looks at the work that I did in black and white from the late 70s through till 2005. So it is kind of a survey of previous work up until that point. By that time, I was beginning to work in color. The American Series book is all black and white. And the quality of that book is pretty exceptional.
And is that book still available for our viewers who would be interested?
Yeah, it is available, but through me, basically.
Through you, through your website, which we will share in the show notes or someplace around here. All right, so the last question that we're starting to do on this series is to ask our guests to recommend a book that everyone should know about or see. And so, can you recommend that a book for our viewers?
Sure. We were referencing the very high quality work in the big ambitious book.
Yeah.
Steve Rosenthal, New England Churches. Stephen Rosenthal is a commercial, retired now, but was a high-end 8x10 architectural photographer in the Boston region primarily, but lots of covers on national magazines, and probably the best architectural photographer that I can think of. And he did a personal project in black and white of 8x10 pictures of these New England churches, which isn't something I would think I would be particularly fascinated with, but they are exquisite photographs and they are beautifully printed. So it becomes a kind of reference standard to me. I would show students that book as a kind of reference because it's so beautifully designed, printed, made, and it's quite large. It's probably 14 or 15 inches high.
What is it about the photography in his book that is so exceptional?
Just it's on point. I mean, he's got the best light, he's got the best technique, he's got the best printing. It's just a consummate book.
Yeah. Well, Neal Rantoul, thank you for joining us again on the Crit House. It is always a pleasure to talk to you in any circumstance. Thank you very much.
Pleasure to be on with you. I appreciate it very much.
And thank you all for watching the Crit House.